Welcome to our game today in which Bobby Fischer plays the Evans Gambit and absolutely destroys Ruben Fine in 17 moves. Now, the Evans Gambit is one of the most aggressive and highly successful gambits that you can play as white. After e4, e5, knight c3, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, we get b4, the Evans Gambit. And Ruben Fine himself is on record by saying that the Evans Gambit poses a great challenge to black because it's difficult to play d6 or to give back the pawn. The idea of here, if you play something like bishop to e7, is that later in the game we're going to get a nice queenside attack with the pawns. In the game, Fine takes on b4, which is pretty much the main move, and then bishop back to a5, and that is the main move at master level. Now the Evans Gambit, you need to know what you're doing, otherwise you will get destroyed. And in the game, after e takes d4, you can't take back with the pawn because it's pinned to the king. So Fischer, he castles, and here we see that Fine takes on c3, which allows Fischer now to attack the f7 pawn. Now, of course, the Evans Gambit is great because you want to get your bishops facing the attack, getting your knights jumping in all over the place. It's an extremely aggressive and frightening gambit to play against if you don't know what you're doing. And unfortunately for Ruben Fine, he doesn't know what he's doing because he plays queen to e7, which seems like a smart move because you're thinking, well, I can now play knight to f3 and castles and everything is okay in the world, and I'm up a pawn. But unfortunately, you need to play queen to f6 here. If you don't play queen to f6, you're in big trouble. And even still with queen to f6, you can somehow end up with this sort of a position on the board, which is still winning for white. So even when you know what you're doing, it's a difficult gambit to play against, even when you're pawn up, even if you give it back. But here we get queen to e7, which is a mistake because now we get knight takes on c3, taking back the pawn. But we know that Fine is currently up 2 pawns, but the idea is that Fischer wants to jump in here to the d5, attacking here on d7, attacking the queen, attacking where the knight would be. But here Fine again makes another mistake, plays the queen to f6, thinking, well, I can just block this jump and everything is okay in the world. But unfortunately, he doesn't realize the strength that is behind playing knight to d5, because after he takes, what do you think is the best move here? And it's interesting here because for white there is only one winning move, and you might think, well, it's taking back with the bishop, but in fact taking back with the bishop uh, is minus 1.4, minus 1.5. Black has a clear lead. You should take with the pawn, and if you take with the pawn, you're now attacking the knight. You're giving your bishop a chance to get out here and attack because you're going to win a tempo. You're also getting a chance for your rook to get to the e file. Even though it is being attacked here, you can double up and cause all sorts of problems here for black. So a very important move to know as white. Fischer, of course, knows the move, so we get knight to e5, knight takes on e5, queen takes e5, and here we get bishop to b2. Very nice move by Fischer. So Fine thinks, well, I'm going to have to block and protect this pawn because otherwise we're going to be attacking the rook. Also, he's defending against queen to queen to e3, which is will be checking the king. Now, black desperately needs to castle in this game. In Evans Gambit, if black can castle, they're doing well. But here we see a really lovely move by Bobby Fischer. He plays h4, which is a distraction tactic. If you take, well, now I can take with the bishop, and that's what happens. And then we get rook to g8, another inaccuracy. These all seem like smart moves to play. These are by Ruben Fine, who is a 2600 player. But even still, the Evans Gambit, the power behind it is shown. And we get rook to f to e1, checking the king. Now, this square is also blocked, so there's only one move for the king to play, and that is to d8. Even though you're giving up the rook, it can be played a second time by recapturing. Now, can you find the move that Bobby Fischer played here to end the game? Well, that was queen to g3. The problem being, of course, is if the queen takes, we've got checkmate, and the queen has to protect against that diagonal. If you take the bishop, you lose your queen. And pretty much the computer's move here is queen to e7, and after takes, it is such a bad position for black that the number one move, the number two move, the number three move are all do not take the bishop, do not take the rook, but in fact play d6, and it's a mate in 6 from here. So Bobby Fischer absolutely destroys Ruben Fine in the Evans Gambit. I hope you enjoyed.